Please welcome to the stage the CEO of the Navy League of the United States and 13th Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, Mike Stevens.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, there we go. Looks like we got, a little over 1,000 people in the room from where I'm sitting. I'm not going to miss the opportunity to do this. It's off script a little bit, but in the room today, and we'll recognize him more. We have a real, true American hero, Medal of Honor recipient Ed Byers and his wife Madison, who have joined us. Ed, could you and Madison please stand for just a moment, please? Yeah. Madison, thanks for letting Ed come to this lunch today. We appreciate it. If you haven't had a chance to read Ed's story, I would encourage you all to do that. One of the coolest things I've ever got a chance to do is drink a beer with Ed Byers. Right, so Ed, we appreciate you, and we're glad that you just came back from Mexico, right? Yeah, I'm not sure what he was doing in Mexico, but he's a SEAL. So we're glad that he made it back here. Well, again, good afternoon, everyone, and we hope you're all enjoying this incredible second day of Sea Air Space 2025. Yesterday was a fantastic kickoff to this year's Expo, filled with insightful discussions, outstanding educational panels, and wow, what a privilege to hear from the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, General Smith. His words were truly inspiring and pretty frank and no nonsense. That's what we love about General Smith. We also had a wonderful international maritime reception yesterday. And I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our international partners for joining us this year at Sea Air Space. Your presence underscores the importance of global cooperation in the maritime security, and we are grateful for your participation. If you're one of our international partners, would you mind standing for a minute so we can recognize you? Where are you at? International partners. It's a tough and challenging world out there, and we can't go it alone, so we appreciate our partners on the international side. Today's luncheon, can't do this without a sponsor, and we have many sponsors, and we just want to thank BAE Systems, CACI, Fenton Carey, L3 Harris, Mesa, and OR partners. Sponsors, if you're in the room, could you please stand real quick? I'm sorry to do this to you, but just want to thank you. Thank you very much. Navy League's just a little old nonprofit. We can't do it without our sponsors helping us out, so thank you very much for that. As we continue through the expo, I encourage everyone to explore the amazing exhibits on the show floor, and don't forget to weather the cold a little bit, no pun intended, weather the cold a little bit, and go out to the tent area and the dock and see those folks as well. There is so much innovation and technology on display, and I also want to remind you that if you go down past the tented area, you could go down on the docks, and there's some water activities going on out there. So please give the dock a little bit of love as well. We have another exciting afternoon ahead, and it's now my pleasure to introduce someone who plays a pretty darn important role in the success of the Navy League of the United States, and that is our National President and Chairman, Mr. Chris Towney Townsend, to introduce our keynote speaker. So, Towney, the floor is yours, my friend. All right.
Thanks, Mick Pond, for setting the stage for another exciting day of Sea Air Space 2025. As we reflect on everything we've experienced so far, one thing is clear. This exposition is more than just an event. It's a testament to the strength of our maritime community. The collaboration, innovation, and shared commitment to maritime security and readiness are on full display, from our industry partners to our international allies and, of course, our men and women in uniform. It's been incredible to see the conversations taking place, the connections being made, and the groundbreaking technologies being showcased on the show floor. These moments remind us why gatherings like CR Space are so important. We are shaping the future together. And with that, it is my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, General Randall Reed, the 15th Commander of U.S. Transportation Command, is one of 11 combatant commanders in the Department of Defense. U.S. Transcom's primary responsibility is to transport, maneuver, and sustain Department of Defense forces anywhere in the world during peace and war. Additional responsibilities include managing and transporting bulk fuel, as well as routine to critically ill patients. General Reed's service began at the United States Air Force Academy. He then advanced to become a command pilot with over 3,500 hours and 10 different airframes. He is a graduate of the School of Advanced Air and Space Studies, which has produced influential air power and national security strategists since the 1990s. Notably, he was awarded the Department of State Superior Honor Award as the Senior Defense Official and Defense Attaché to Turkey. A commander at all levels with impact around the globe, from humanitarian missions to combat, our speaker has touched it all. It is my distinct honor to welcome General Randall Reed.
That was awesome. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, I direct your attention to the screens. If you feel good about that, let's hear it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What a joy it is to be here with you today at this luncheon. Navy League, thank you so much for this venue. Gaylord, thank you so much for the lunch, and the rest of us, let's give them a round of applause. One of my most favorite shipmates in here is Jim. Jim, thank you so much for your leadership, and thank you for stepping up and stepping in. I think we've discussed for the last day and a half a number of challenges that we have in front of us. You and I share a lot of those same ones, and we're working well together, and I can't think of a better partner in you, so thank you so much for you. All right, to the United States Navy, I don't know when I'll have another chance in public to say happy birthday early, so come October, 250 years. Thank you. Jim, to be 250 years old, a quarter of a millennium, you're looking pretty darn good. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, you're probably wondering, is this guy Air Force or is he Coast Guard standing here in blue? I've gotten that question a lot. But I'll have to tell you, I feel very welcome here. And throughout my whole time here, folks have walked up to me, they've said hi, they've said hi to my bride, Lynn, and everyone wants to know if we're comfortable in this crowd. And I'll tell you, we are entirely so because, for one, our aims are the same. And then second, because I just want to take a few minutes to share with you why I feel so comfortable. So if you look at the screen, some of you are old enough to remember a setup like this. You remember the fake brick that was plastic that we actually plastered to the walls in your homes back in the 70s? And then you remember the big gigantic television with the antenna ears with the aluminum foil on the top? Some of you are even old enough to remember, I see some smiles out here. Some of you are even old enough to remember the Sunday paper. And then we would get the Sunday paper, and there was an insert we would pull out, and it had TV listings for the entire week. Yep, and then that way you knew how to schedule your life to catch your favorite TV show. And then for me, I would always go back to the end of the week on Friday and Saturday, specifically for me on our late night public station. And there was this one movie that I would always want to watch. If you recognize this, Captain Horatio Hornblower. And I could not get enough of this movie. And so every time it would come on, I would watch it. And it just totally got me fired up about everything on the seas. And even more than that, it was the heroism, it was the excitement, it was the ability to see the world and solving problems that I just really got fired up every time I saw it. And then one night in particular, I stayed up long enough to actually watch the credits roll up. And I found out that this movie was founded on a series of books by C.S. Forester. So some of you will remember doing what I did. You went to the local library, and you went to the card catalog. And in this case, I went to the F thing, and I found these books, and I started plowing through them all. And I just could not get enough of the sea. And then lastly, growing up in the Hampton Roads area, I used to ride my bike to the seawall to the historic Fort Monroe. And I would just sit there fascinated watching the cargo ships go by and sail over the bridge tunnel. And as they were sailing by, on the other side of them would be Greyhound combatants from Norfolk Naval Base sailing past them. At that time, I had no idea that that moment would bring me to this stage. The inextricable link between Navy combatants and our commercial merchant marine, the combination of those two makes our country great. And that is what also makes Transcom great. And so I'm here today to share with you a little bit along the themes of this conference, but through the eyes of Transcom and through the eyes of the combination of the Navy combatants and the merchant marine. And when we get through, I think we'll have a different view of what our future will actually be like. So with that, I go back to Captain Horatio Hornblower with that long gaze. And while I got excited about the captain, I'll leave the combatant stuff to Jim, but I'll look at Gregory Peck, the man, and I'll look at a different Gregory, which is the Gregory on our commercial ships. The ones that have been with us through thick and thin forever, and they continue to be with us today. And following their gaze on the horizon, this is where we need to go. What's in front of us now? And for the last day and a half, we've talked about a lot of that. And it's not exactly pretty. But as Transcom looks at the challenges there in front of us, I kind of like to go back and use history as a guide. So as a nod to my fellow sea service, the Navy, and coming up on your 250th birthday, we're going to go back in your history, use your history as a guide, the experiences that we've had together, and then we're going to take that and figure out what challenges are in front of us and then how we need to get after those. Overcoming challenges from workforce shortages. We've talked about trouble with shipbuilding. We've talked about supply chains. We've talked about contested logistics, long distances. In the next fight we have coming up, there's this thing about blockades we have to contend with. We have very capable adversaries with very large fleets. There's a need for shallow draft ships, and we have to get the mission done with sustainment. If this isn't enough to keep you up at night, then you probably missed the fact that I'm not talking about today. I'm actually talking about the challenges that we had during the Revolutionary War. And the message here, ladies and gentlemen, is we've been here before. And during that time, we had just as much uncertainty. We hadn't even found ourselves as a nation. We had a fledgling government. We really didn't even have a Navy. And so the Continental Congress decided that they would start one, and it started with 27 ships that were merchant ships to face a far greater Royal Navy of 270 ships. Now, my bride is the one that does the math in public, but I'm smart enough to figure this one out. That's a 1-to-10 ratio, and it ain't good. But after 250 years ago, working through this, it took everything in combination with the merchant piece for economic viability, for people who were competent to sail the seas, for a workforce who could build, and to get on with the Navy to finally figure out all the problem sets that it took to take on another great power. And in the end, we did just that. So what are the lessons we can learn from that? Everything that we're facing today and that we're going to face tomorrow, we've already faced in our past, and there's a lot, Jim, that you and the Navy can teach us from that point on and for the next 250 years. As we go forward, there's some additional lessons to learn, but really they're lessons that we learn to an even greater extent. And it took the Navy and the Merchant Marine to get us through that period of 1812 to 1815, also known as the War of 1812. And the problems that we were challenged with there and faced with there is the fact that we had an even larger Navy sitting in front of us at that time of 500 ships. In the previous conflict, we had allies and partners to help us. In this one, not so much. And so since we were basically cut off from one side, what did we have to do? We had to build ships of a different kind, shallow draft, and we had to use interior lines through the interior waterways. And we had to take advantage of the lakes. And this is where we go back to the Battle of Lake Erie. And because of that battle, what lesson do we get out of that? It's really grit. It's really understanding that it doesn't matter what the odds are in front of us. But in combination with the Merchant Marine and the United States Navy, we can find a way to reach the objectives. So through the Battle of Lake Erie, what we found was, once again, we called upon the Navy to sweep away the threat on the lake. And once we were able to do that, then the Merchant Marine was able to use that lake and the rest of the rivers to actually supply the lines from behind. And the part that's really fascinating to me on this one as I think about how we fight is there was somebody by the name of Lawrence. And Lawrence had inspired the rest of the Navy on a battle where he said, don't give up this ship. And then in that subsequent battle on Lake Erie, when that admiral was inspiring his force not to give up the ship, his ship actually sank underneath him. And so he actually moved to another ship, but had the wherewithal to carry the banner with him to don't give up the ship, and went on to the next flagship, won the battle, and with that we were able to provide the sustainment to fight the war to a draw. So in this case, once again, it's the Navy being able to fight, set the conditions to get some kind of sea control, to allow the Merchant Marine to provide the sustainment that's needed for the rest of the force. So when we back out of that, look at the horizon, the next challenge that we found ourselves in was in that period of 1861 to 1865. And the lesson here was not so much sailing the deep blue, but when we looked back at the period of 1812 to 1815, our biggest challenge was sea control. And because we didn't have the sea control, we had to do some other things. And so in this case, we instituted a complete strategy of sea control across the Atlantic, shallow draft ships on the inland waterways. We were able to provide the sustainment through every avenue possible, and we were able to partner with the land forces for a combined force to actually get the objectives done. Without the Merchant Marine there to continue to sail into the threat and the sea control by the Navy, this conflict would have dragged on much longer than it should have. The next challenge in front of us was something that we had not seen before, and it's the one that's the closest to us in terms of where we take the lessons from. And in the period from World War I to World War II, this is where we really grab on to an organized industrial base that's able to provide the equipment, the ships, and all of the other things that need to go abroad to millions and millions of people manning the forces. The miracle of this one again becomes the Gray Hull Navy providing levels of sea control, but this is where we also see that the scope and the scale of the fight is so grand that the Merchant Marine oftentimes has to sail with minimum protection in a contested environment, yet and still they never shied away. And with having that pool of people to actually do that, they were able to take all the production that our nation could give and actually move it around the world in two separate conflicts to help us win the day. And with that, we became the nation that the world needed us to be, to have great influence, to partner with allies, partners, and friends in order to create a period of peace for the last 80 years that has delivered for all of us untold economic prosperity that the world has never seen. And so with that, I want to take a moment to pause and say the combination of the Navy and the Merchant Marine at that time was really incredible and actually changed the world. And so with that, let's give all of ourselves a round of applause. But it didn't come without a cost. Out of 2,700 Liberty ships that were built, over 700 were lost, and thousands of sailors met their end. Eisenhower said it the best: when final victory is ours, there is no organization that will share its credit more deservedly than the Merchant Marine, which means that the combination of all of our maritime force is required to do what this nation asks. Once we were able to get past that challenge, we found ourselves faced with something so much more. Fortunately, we got through the period of the Cold War and the Gulf War. But it was the Cold War that actually helped produce for us, and specifically TRANSCOM, the Ready Reserve Force. And we depend on that now more than ever. Fortunately, we have that force of ships on the ready. Today, they stand ready to sail within 5 days of being tasked. And we have a pool of folks to actually sail them. After the Cold War, we got ourselves into the Gulf War, and this really became an issue of sustainment. And so we were able to ramp up as a country and set sail around the world to sustain forces for every conflict that we were in. But the part that's really disturbing as I look back is we did amazing things, but it was all uncontested. And because it was uncontested, we tended to forget a little bit about the things that happened in the previous 200 years or so in the Navy and what it took to be successful. And that has changed. So as we come out of the Gulf War and we come to the here and now, Sustainment is still the name of the game, and sustainment is still the challenge. But it's now contested. And it doesn't take rocket science to see that it doesn't take someone with a ton of capability to do that. And in the Red Sea today, we have sailors, both active duty and civilian, who are sailing in harm's way for the betterment of all of us. And there's some things that we need to change. And so from a Transcom perspective, this is one reason why you hear us being very vocal about returning to the oceans. This is one reason when our president mentioned that we were going to stand up in office to figure out this problem, that all of us in this room got a little bit more excited. And we all know that there's several aspects to this, and you will find in me no greater champion and supporter to build here in America, to establish supply chains that we can depend on, to encourage the generations behind us to take to the seas to sail, and to help my shipmate get everything that he needs to have to give those sailors the tools they need to get back to awesome sea control. And I will do that with you to my last breath. So where's Transcom in all of this? A lot of you know that when I went to testify on the Hill, I had some very good conversations before we actually went to the chambers. And I will tell you that we have tremendous support from both the House and the Senate. They understand and completely get the nature of the problem. They are with us, and they are letting me know that I need to be very crisp and pure with them in terms of what the challenges are and what we need to have to be supported. From a sustainment perspective, I am telling them that the ages of our ships right now are way too old, and we need to get younger ships, and I will take them however I can get them. But the main thing is it's not necessarily for the ships and the platforms, it's also for the crew force. Because we have a very capable crew force, and they need the best and the newest equipment that we can absolutely get for them. And while we may hear from time to time that we are short on folks to actually crew the ships, the discussion that I have with folks is it's not so much about building more in order to get more people. We need to get newer and build more to take care of the people that we already have. So what's next? Things like sea, air, and space, where we get the government and the industry together to talk about the problems, to talk about solutions, to have our allies and partners and friends join us to figure out how to do this together is the way ahead. Because ultimately, while we are doing it for the security of our separate countries, we are also doing it for the folks who serve. And I will tell you, when it comes to the folks who serve, we're in good hands. Just last week, my bride and I had a chance to go to Kings Point, and I got to attend my first standards dinner, and that's where they celebrate the sacrifice of 147 cadets who lost their lives during World War II serving this country. And they maintain that heritage, and as they're doing their studies, they have something to look up to and something to live towards. And that's one of the things that they do to make themselves better. But it wasn't the standard dinner that really had me walking away in admiration and almost tears. Towards the end of the dinner, they called up 14 cadets. And those 14 cadets lined up on the stage, and they started out at parade rest, and then one by one, they all snapped to attention. And the reason why they snapped to attention is the Secretary of Transportation was walking down the line, and he was pinning expeditionary medals on each cadet. Think about that. Expeditionary medals on a cadet. Because as part of their education, they take to sea. And these cadets have actually seen combat. They've actually been in harm's way. They were actually telling us stories of what it's like to sail past Yemen and watch things go over their head, or to watch the Navy actually engage targets to protect them. And they were not afraid. In fact, they were ready to go back for more. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we need to do this for them. We can do this for them. They are inspired and they are ready to follow behind us. And so we have another day and a half to work together. We have another day and a half to chat with each other. And we have the rest of our lives once we leave here to make sure that all of us can do what needs to be done, and that is return the might of the Navy and our maritime force to be able to defend the freedom of the seas. So with that, I consider that we have dedicated ourselves to the cause, that we will inspire the next Randall Reed. He might not be reading books like I did. He might be looking at the internet. He might even be looking at a hologram. His sister might already be serving. But if we're going to do this, let's do it for them. And remember, together we deliver. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, General Reed, for your remarks and your attendance at the 60th anniversary of Sea, Air, Space. At this time, please welcome to the stage Navy League National President, Mr. Christopher Townsend, and the CEO of the Navy League of the United States and 13th Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, Mr. Mike Stevens, and Acting Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Jim Kilby, to present this year's Safety Award winners. The Safety Award is intended to stimulate safety through ideas, suggestions, and programs that will reduce mishaps, injuries, and fatalities within the Department of the Navy by providing special recognition to those who best exemplify and advance a culture of safety. Ladies and gentlemen, the Admiral Vern Clark Safety Award for an individual is presented to Mr. Angelo Owens, Director of Occupational Health and Safety at Fleet Readiness Center East. Vice Admiral Carl Chevy is accepting on his behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, the Admiral Vern Clark Safety Award for a unit is presented to Airborne Command and Control Squadron 117. Lieutenant Commander Nick Castelli is accepting on their behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, the General James L. Jones Safety Award for an individual is presented to Deputy Chief Ryan Tworick. Major General Jason Woodworth is accepting on his behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, the General James L. Jones Safety Award for a Marine Corps unit is Marine Corps Air Station Miramar in San Diego. Major General Jason Woodworth is accepting on their behalf. The Albert A. Mickelson Award honors a civilian scientist, technical innovator, or technical organization for scientific or technical achievement that results in a significant improvement in the strength of our maritime forces or to the enhancement of our industrial technology base that was exhibited by the award's namesake, Albert A. Mickelson. The Navy League of the United States is honored to present the Albert A. Mickelson Award for exceptional leadership to Mr. Robert Taylor of Bardex Corporation. The Fleet Admiral Chester W. Nimitz Award honors a leader of industry who has made a major contribution to our nation's maritime strength and enhanced our national security, and who best exemplifies the leadership, statesmanship, and dedication to our country that was exhibited by the award's namesake, Fleet Admiral Chester W. Nimitz. The Navy League of the United States is honored to present the Fleet Admiral Chester W. Nimitz Award for Exceptional Leadership to Mr. Scott Forney, General Atomics Electromagnetic Systems. The Admiral Arleigh Burke Leadership Award is bestowed upon a distinguished leader who exemplifies the qualities reminiscent of Admiral Burke himself. As a revered naval leader and three-term chief of naval operations, Admiral Burke epitomized American heroism through his exemplary professional achievements in both war and peace, his steadfast ethical standards, and his selfless devotion to our country. It is with great pleasure that we will be presenting this year's Navy League Arleigh Burke Award to Mr. Ed Byers. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ed Byers.
Thank you. Well, this is an absolute honor to be up here in front of you today with so many distinguished individuals. I really do look out in this room and I see the fabric of America, the threads that hold our nation together during our most precious times. You know, I stand up here today not for what I've done, but what I've been entrusted to carry forward, and it's humbling. To my beautiful wife, Madison, your love and support is my anchor. You're my truth teller, and you keep me grounded. To my friends who made the trip here, to Grant, to Noe, Tom, Andy, Calvert, I'm grateful for your friendship, your mentorship, and your unwavering support. This moment belongs to you as much as it belongs to me. Thank you for taking time out of your day to travel by train, fly across the country, or drive across the Potomac to be here today to celebrate this moment. To the war fighters in this room, past and present, I truly see you. You've carried burdens that most will not understand. You've paid in time, blood, and sacrifice, and yet you continue to show up with humility and grit. Thank you for your service and for being the professionals who keep the wolves at bay. And a little bit of the thunder was stolen, but happy birthday to our Navy and its 250th year. From the Washington Immortals to those that sail the seas today, it has truly been an honor of my lifetime to have served 24 years within your ranks. Admiral Burke was a warrior, a visionary, a man who stood at the crossroads of tradition and transformation. He was decisive when others hesitated. He built up warriors when others built barriers. He understood that leadership wasn't about rank, it was about resolve. His legacy is our charge. When MCPO Stevens informed me that I'd be receiving an award bearing Admiral Burke's name, I didn't think about accolades, I thought about legacy, about the men of the Naval Combat Demolition Units and the underwater demolition teams that breached the beaches of Normandy with nothing more than a mask, fin, dive knife, and satchel of explosives, and the will to do the impossible. They faced withering fire, suffered over 52% casualties rates, and still cleared the way for freedom to advance. That wasn't strategy, that was audacity, that was grit, and that was selflessness in its purest form. That was a seed the very roots of naval special warfare. And Admiral Burke saw that future. When others clung to convention, he looked across the horizon and recognized the battlefield was changing. He had seen it firsthand in Okinawa. He knew America's enemies wouldn't always wear uniforms or line up in rows. Unconventional, guerrilla-style tactics were already being used by our adversaries, and traditional naval power alone wouldn't win a new kind of war. Leadership like that isn't found in PowerPoint decks. It's earned in chaos. And for those forged by chaos, in the dust of Basra, the Tangi Valley, the Kunar Mountains, or other places our nation sends its discreet warriors, we know that true leadership isn't about control, it's about capacity. The capacity to inspire without needing a title. The capacity to choose the hard right over the easy wrong. The capacity to carry more when the mission demands it. Leadership in the teams meant being calm in the storm, not because you had all the answers, but because you refused to quit. You didn't speak the loudest, your example was thunder enough. So as the CNO, Admiral Burke made a bold move, and he said, naval forces must be prepared to conduct unconventional warfare. It's imperative that selected Navy personnel be trained in counterinsurgency and guerrilla warfare tactics to meet emerging threats. That one decision changed everything, and a year later, it led to the formation of the SEAL teams in 1962. It helped institutionalize a mindset that elite asymmetric forces were not a wartime improvisation, but a strategic necessity. And most importantly, he trusted the quiet professionals, the warriors that didn't need attention, just authorization, the rogue warriors, the disciplined misfits, the unreasonably committed. He knew the fight ahead wouldn't be won by conventional thinking, so he did what true leaders do and cleared the path for others to thrive. He laid the foundation which will become the most formidable maritime special operations force in the world. Today, modern SEAL teams operate in more domains than ever before: sea, air, land, cyber, and space. But their purpose hasn't changed. They still go deep behind enemy lines, they still move in the shadows, and they still do what others can't and won't. They carry the legacy of the men who came before us. They are expected to solve strategic problems at a tactical level, often with little guidance, few resources, and an unforgiving clock. That kind of environment just doesn't require skill. It requires judgment, restraint, and moral clarity, qualities Admiral Burke demanded of his leaders. He once said, leadership is understanding people. If you understand people, you can make them do anything. That isn't manipulation, it's mission-driven trust. In today's fractured world, that couldn't be more true. The mission now is just as much about influence as it is about impact, and both demand integrity, and leaders who don't flinch at friction and don't wait for permission to lead. In the teams, we say quiet is professional, but humility is lethal. The most capable men I ever knew rarely spoke about what they did, but they showed up every single day. And when there was time to lead, they didn't ask, why me? They asked, what else can I carry, and who needs help? Leadership like that comes from and is tested in hardship. It's refined by loss, and it lasts because it's built on service to something greater than itself. If I've learned anything worth sharing, it's this: be the one who chooses to carry more. Carry the burdens others fear. Carry the legacy of warriors past. Carry the light when the path is dark. Carry the standard when the world forgets what it means. Because leadership, the kind Arleigh Burke believed in, isn't about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. To the Navy League, McPon, thank you for this incredible honor. To my friends and teammates, thank you for showing me what being a true brother means and being my truth tellers. To my wife, thank you for being my foundation and my future. To the next generation of warriors, the ones just earning their tridents or stepping onto the quarterdeck for the first time, our nation isn't looking for perfection. She's looking for truth, for someone who will stand for everything, even when it might cost you everything. So pick up the torch, lead with courage, lead with character, lead like Burke. Put on the full armor of God so you may take your stand against the devil's schemes. May God bless you all. May he bless the United States Navy. May he forever bless this great nation that we are sworn to defend. And may St. Michael defend our warriors in battle. Long live the brotherhood. Thank you.